Welcome to the Copper King Mine and Railroad. Today we're going to talk about the mills. The mills here at the Copper King Mine and the large mills over to Magna, the Arthur Mill and the Magna Mill. So stay tuned.
This is my mill area on the Copper King Mine and Railroad. We're going to drive around here a little bit. We're going to talk about the big mills that were out to Magna. Now, this was an important part of mining when they was using this, trying to process this low-grade ore. It was like 1% or even sometimes even less. So they was mass producing it. So they had to grind it way down, and then they had to figure out flotation processes to skim the ore off the top and the other minerals. So this is my little mill area. It's when you first walk into the room, you can see this. Here's my mill building over here. I just did a close-up on. Right next to it is the power plant, the mine. Over here is the old mill, gravity-fed mill building. The trains transported the ore until 1980s. Then they built the new Copperton mill. Now they moved the ore out to the smelter by a slurry line, a 12-inch slurry line, and the tailings out to the Magna tailings pond, an 18-inch pipe. And then they have a return water line also. Now, they did continue some train service until the early 2000s. They were shipping to the Bonneville mill. Anyway, so the train's coming around the mill area right now. Then we'll go take a look at the big mills out to Magna. Eventually they'll have 3 out there. We just talk about 2 in the video. In 1966, they will build the Bonneville concentrator. So this is my little mill area. The ores come down out of the mine, the Copper King mine here. And then they make a loop, and then they come into this mill area. Here's a nighttime shot. We work around the clock at the Copper King mine, 7 days a week, to process all this ore comes out. Anyway, this is the mill area on the Copper King mine and railroad. We're going to go look at the ones for Bingham Canyon, the big ones out to Magna. We're going to talk about mills today. We had a video on the mills, but we're going into detail about these large mills they had out to Magna. Now, these first pictures are of the Copperton mill. This was in the mouth of Bingham Canyon. It was right next to Dry Fork Canyon. You see this map right here with this red dot. Now this is looking down on it, and you can see to the left would be the Dry Fork Canyon. So these are some great old pictures of this Copperton mill. Now this was the experimental mill that Jacqueline and Gimbel made to see if it would be profitable to take this low-grade ore and to make a profit out of it. They experimented with every kind of milling techniques they had for the day. So the problem they had right here in Bingham was that they didn't have enough water to run the mill, and they didn't have enough place to put the tailings. So they found a place at the north end of the Oquirrh mountain range, about 19 miles away from the mine. Now here they had ample room for the tailings. They found a large spring. It was right here up in Pleasant Green was the name of the place. Later the name changed to Magna. Anyway, so let's show the progress of building these mills. Now there was 2 mills out here, remember, because they had 2 companies at the mine. The Boston Consolidated was on top of the mountain, and Utah Copper was on the bottom of the mountain. Now they'll merge in 1910, but for right now they're building these great looking mills out here. This is pictures taken in 1906. You can see in this picture Right here in the foreground is the Boston Consolidated Mill they're building, and then back to the left in the background is the Magna Mill they're building for Utah Copper. But this is the horse and buggy area. You can see all the horses in this picture doing the grading and different things in the picture. A lot of men out there working. So progress on the building of these mills, these huge mills they build out here, is just really cool. Now this is interesting too. This place where they built these mills was called Mill Point. Now, it wasn't because they built these mills here, it was because the early pioneers found large stones for grinding grain out here, so they called it Mill Point. Now, after the 1910 merge with Utah Copper and Boston Consolidated Copper, they changed the name of the Boston Consolidated Mill to Arthur Mill after the 21st president. Now, these are some pictures of the Magna Mill. They look pretty much the same, but this was the first mill the railroads came into. And then the Arthur Mill was just around the corner. Then a little further down there was they built the big Garfield smelter. It's kind of interesting. The Magna Mill, it cost $4 million to build, compared to the Boston Consolidated Mill, what cost $1,468,000. So there's a big difference. Now let's go look at some of the inside pictures of these early mills. This is really interesting. These tables and these cones and different things they had to grind this ore down. And then they separated the ore using flotation processes to skim some of the copper off and some of the other minerals that they found at the mine. Now the first ores were delivered to the mills by way of Denver Rio Grande's low-grade line. They contracted with the Denver Rio Grande to bring the ore to the mills. They couldn't keep up with the mine's output, and Utah Copper wanted to have them upgrade their rails and put more ore cars on, but they wouldn't do it for some reason. So Utah Copper built their own railroad line, the Bingham and Garfield, and that started in 1911. Now, this was used till 1948 to bring the ore from the mine to the mills. That's when they built the Copperton Low Line. Then in the 80s, they put a conveyor system in and built a new mill out in Copperton again. But they continued to use the railroad and these old mills out here until the 2000s, early 2000s, then they stopped that altogether. One other interesting thing about the mills when they had them out here is the dumper cars they had. They would just take these train cars and tip them upside down to dump them. So it was really a fast process to unload these 100-ton ore cars. So let's look at some of these really neat pictures, these car dumpers. Arthur Mill, it had a single dumper car, and then the Magna Mill had a twin, so they could dump 2 ore cars at one time. Then here's some later pictures of the Magna and Arthur Mills in the 60s. So some great old pictures of. Now out here there's nothing left, there's no more. So this is what the mill areas look like December 20th, 2020. This is where the Arthur Mill was, right up in here. So you can see there's nothing here now. The other side of this hill right here would be the refinery. Then the other side of that mountain would be the smelter. This is the Arthur area right here where the Arthur Mill was. This is looking back east. Now this is looking back west on the other side. We're looking at the slurry line that goes over to the Tillings Pond. Now the Magna Mill was just below the power plant. You see the power plant right there. A little sunny day. Anyway, so this is where the Magna Mill would be, on this side of the hill, and then again that's the slurry line running over to the Tillings Pond. And you can see the Tilling Pond right there. So that's what it looks like December 20th, 2020.